Of course, very welcome, Lucy. So, on to item number 9, HR Operations and Workforce Information Update. This report sets out key people indicators and management information to the end of the third quarter, 2025 and 26, and makes comparisons with previous year's performance where applicable. Contact officer is Sarah Cragg and Lucy Stoner to introduce the report. So, over to you, Lucy. Thank you. Oh, sorry, no, Lucy, sorry, Louise.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good evening. So, as discussed, this report sets out the key people indicators and management information to the end of the third quarter of 25-26 and makes comparison with previous year's performance where applicable. Due to the length of this report, I'm going to pull out key performance indicators and we'll welcome any questions at the end. So the report outlines key HR activities in areas such as staff engagement, organisational change and development and wellbeing. So starting with workforce demographics, the workforce demographics largely remain static, although there has been a slight increase in headcount. If we move on to section 4 of establishment and the turnover, our headcount and FTE have increased across the first 3 quarters of 25-26 in April to December. But we've seen voluntary resignations have fallen, decreasing by 1.78% compared to last year. For voluntary resignations, using the quarterly average, the projected outcome is 4.48%, which is lower than the outturn for last year's, which was 5.31%. The committee in October requested additional information on the percentage of all leavers by service area, which we've placed into the report in section 4.7. So one area that I just wanted to pull out that we're currently reviewing is the exit questionnaire, and we're currently trialling a new method to increase response rates by sending out a Microsoft form attached to the leavers letter. Moving on to section 5, this highlights various statistics relating to sickness absence, and where possible we've tried to compare with previous years. So the average sickness absence was 6.12 days, which is slightly above the target of 5.85. Over half the workforce, which is 55.57%, have had no sickness absence during this quarter. And stress, anxiety and depression were the main causes of sickness absence, with longer periods off rather than more people affected. And all of our overall trends are in line with the National Certificate of Personnel Development findings. Moving on to section 6 of the report, which details recruitment monitoring. So during the period, the 1st of April 25 to the 31st of December, there was 118 vacancies were advertised, and we received 1532 applications during this period. Section 7 of the report details wellbeing and the Council's commitment to creating a healthy, safe and supportive workplace with a strong focus on mental health and wellbeing. A cross-council wellbeing group, which is chaired by HR, leads initiatives that support the Council's wellbeing strategy. And support available to all members of staff includes council-funded counselling. We have a 24/7 employees assistance programme, occupational health service and trained mental health champions who offer peer support and signposting. Moving on to the section relating to learning and development. The Council continues to invest in apprenticeships, and we have 5 apprentices and 10 staff completing upskilling qualifications, and we're currently exploring level 3 and 5 management apprenticeships. We have a strong commitment to local employability, as detailed in the report, with participations in career events throughout the borough and highlighting some STEM activities and ongoing work placement throughout 26. In relation to organisational development, so we've provided information relating to the council values. These have now been in place for about a year, and they are continued to be embedded across the organisation and feature in both internal and external communications. The Learning and Development offer has been redesigned, centralised and relaunched with a new management and leadership development programme due to be launched soon. One area to highlight is the appraisal process. This is being fully reviewed and redesigned with a new system, guidance and training and development, and the updated appraisal process is planned to go live in April 26. So then moving on to the last section of the report, which is relating to local government reorganisation and devolution. So we continuing to proactively communicate with staff about the key stages for both LGR and devolution. And since the last committee, there has been updates in the December's staff briefings and January's briefing, which focused on an introduction to children's services and adult social care. Unison has also been updated via the bi-monthly JCIC committee in relation to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louise. Lucy, if you'd like to address your comments, you have 2 minutes to address the committee. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm here today because of a significant data breach that occurred on a member of the public by the Council during the Downgrange campaign, and you are all aware of this, and so I'm not going to go into the detail about it. But I'm also here to ensure that the Council never ever do this again to any member of the public. So a data breach that is serious and morally wrong, such as a council ringing someone's employer, could easily cost someone their job and therefore their livelihood. Data protection laws are in place to keep the public safe and to eliminate any potential abuse of power, and the public have a fundamental right to a private life away from their employer. It therefore concerns me that you're aware of this situation, yet there is no agenda item in this meeting about your data protection training approach. Having looked at your data, only 78% of staff completed your mandatory GDPR training in 2025 and only 71% in 2024. Despite staff turnover, this is still not 100%. Worse still, councillors only receive data protection training once every 3 years, and it's not compulsory. And in 3 years, not all councillors have completed the training, including several cabinet members. It's clear that you do not have regular and compulsory data protection training in place for your officers and councillors. And saying that you can't enforce data protection training on elected officials because of this or that feels like an excuse. You can make anything happen if you truly want to put the public safety first. Complying with data protection rules is not only a public safety matter, but it is also a matter of the law. So my question is, given the severity of the breach last year, what is the Council going to do or put in place to ensure a breach of the public's data never happens again?
Thank you. Right, I think, Sarah, if you care to respond to... Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I'm more than happy to take that away and discuss that with my colleagues within the Information Governance team. Obviously, as a Human Resources Committee, we don't cover things like council training, although we do cover staff matters, but I will absolutely take that away and speak to colleagues. I don't know the specifics that you're referring to. I've not been involved with those, but absolutely, I'm happy to take that away and provide you with a written response. So, as I said, I will provide you with a written response.
Thank you, Lucy. Councillor Golding.
Can I ask, if councillors wanted to look at things like training compliance, what committee would that then go to if it's not this one?
So training compliance for staff would be this committee. It wouldn't be for councillors, but yes, it would be for staff.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions regarding this? Yeah? Councillor Jones.
Right ones. It's a bit strange. Perhaps that's something we should be looking at, how we're treating our councillors these days. I know the staff are well treated, but when it comes to some of the equipment we have and some of the other stuff, like training, I can only go back years, I'm afraid. It used to be a lot different. We got people in to train us and do it properly, not just online looking at things. That's one of my adage sort of thing. So I think we should be looking at what the actual councillors need, the needs are. You know, it's a good time to bring it up because we got an election, we got new people coming in and old people going out. So it might be just worth the while having a look, see what's actually needed to perform our duties, because it's not, one thing I don't think officers understand, it's not just what happens in here, it's what happens outside. We see a lot of people, but I'll leave that like that.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. GDPR training is available to all councillors every year. Unfortunately, not all councillors do attend. Smug mode on, I always do, but that's by the by. This isn't really the committee to deal, or the place to deal with issues for members, but if you'd care to speak to Democratic Services afterwards, and perhaps we can have a conversation about that later, if that's okay? Yeah? Thank you.
The only thing I would say is a lot of this training comes early, which in some ways is good, but in some ways it's bad. When people have just been elected, May, June, then you hit the summer period. I don't know whether it's spread over because I haven't followed it for a long time.
Yeah, I appreciate in sort of comes in sort of May, June time, everything's, if you're especially newly elected, it can be a little bit overwhelming, and perhaps that's why some newer councillors don't always attend, although, no.
Oh, well, I've put my hand up. It's a long time since I've done a data protection one.
Yeah. Councillor Golding.
When it comes to officers, I am quite surprised that we've only got a 70% completion rate on mandatory training. I'd be quite keen for committee to look at mandatory training completion rates for that training, but for others as well.
Good stuff. Yeah, that's something we can provide. I'm happy to share that with the committee, and then we can look to include that in reports in future.
Thank you.
Oh, so the recommendation to the committee is to note the report. Noted. Sorry, Councillor Golding, you had something else to say?
I got waylaid by the speaker. I had one other question on the report, which is around the mental health and the kind of sickness related to that. At my employer, we do mind the template for the mental wellness plans, which can be quite supportive for employers and employees to kind of go through potential work-based triggers and things. I was just wondering if that was something we also include.
Yes, so just to highlight, that is something that we do actually do, and we also have some training for managers, which is coming up starting this week and also next week, about managing mental health in the workplace. So this is just a few of the supportive tools that we offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the report as is, or any debate? No? Right. So the recommendation to the committee is to note the report as is, So is everybody agreed on that? Thank you. And with, of course, the for Sarah to get back to Lucy and for Tony to have a chat with Democratic Services. Thank you very much. Back to item number 6, the pay and policy statement. This report sets out the Council's pay policy statement for 26 to 27. The contact officer is Sarah Cragg, and Sarah to introduce the report.
Thank you. So, as we've covered at the committee previously, every local authority is required under the Localism Act to produce an annual pay policy statement for the financial year, which must be adopted by the council and reviewed annually. So, Appendix 1 of the report contains the proposed pay policy statement for the coming year, 26-27. So, as outlined in the report, the Localism Act sets out the key information which the statement must contain. This includes the level and elements of remuneration for each chief officer, the remuneration policy of the lowest paid employees and the relationship between the remuneration of those two groups, policy on the other specific aspects of chief officer remuneration, and the policy on remuneration for key areas. The coming year is based on the current changes which have been made to the statement for the coming year. So in addition to updating the and updating the salary figures, the key changes are that the information related to section 4.5 to confirm that back pay for ex-employees related to the National Pay Award must be claimed current arrangements for business travel and lease cars following completion of the second phase of the pay and benefits related to business mileage. Finally, we've added a section at 9 points across the organisation. The report also outlines the pay ratio, which is the gap between the highest paid employee and the median salary of the council, and that has remained the same as last year, which is 4.39. Finally, the report also outlines that no National Pay Award offer for the coming year has been determined, and it does ask the committee to note that my role as Head of Human Resources and Organisational Development has a delegated authority to make amendments to the statement as a result of any National Pay Awards which we're contractually bound to agree. Welcome any questions from the committee.
Councillor Golding.
Thank you. On page 25 in section 9.5 it talks about professional fees. And it kind of says you pay professional fees in two circumstances. Once if you're training, and then once if you have to have your fees paid for you in order to do your job. So my question is, what happens if you train and then you do a job where you have to pay your fees to do your job? Because in your statement it says that you stop paying the fees once training is complete. Does my confusion make sense? So what I'm worried about is person A in the office has come to us ready trained, so gets their fees paid for them. Person B trains with us, gets their fees paid for them until they finish the course, but then is doing the same job but stops getting their fees paid for them. Okay.
Apologies, let me say that again because I didn't have my microphone on. Apologies. I do understand where the confusion has arisen and we will definitely look at the wording for next time around. But just to confirm, that situation wouldn't arise. So the determining factor is whether you need to have that professional sort of qualification or endorsement to do the role. If you do, then we will pay your professional fees. The bit about the training is just to confirm that anyone who is undertaking training leading to a professional qualification, we would pay their fees, but actually if that qualification, and this would be an unlikely scenario, but then wasn't essential for that role moving forward, then we wouldn't continue to pay those fees. So that's the differentiating bit. No worries.
Are there any other questions or comments on this one? Anybody? No. Right, so the recommendation to the committee is to recommend the pay policy statement at Appendix 1 to the Council, and 2, to note the existing delegation to the Head of Human Resources and Organisational Development to update the pay policy statement as a result of any pay awards which the Council is contractually bound to agree. Is everybody happy with that? Agreed? Good. Okay. On to item number 7, the Gender Pay Gap Report. This report updates the committee on the council's gender pay gap and details how the council will fulfil its statutory obligation to report this information. Contact officer is Sarah Cragg, and Sarah to introduce the report. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. So reporting our gender pay gap as an organisation is a requirement under the 2010 Equality Act, and also something that we take very seriously in terms of making sure that we're appropriately monitoring our organisation. So, as is outlined in the report, the gender pay gap is essentially reported almost a year in arrears. So we are looking at the snapshot taken on the 31st of March 2025, and that has to be reported by 31st of March 2026. So the council's mean gender pay gap for 2025 is minus 10.8%, and the minus indicates that it's in favour of women, which therefore compares favourably with that of other organisations. So again, as outlined in the report, the pay gap for the whole economy was 13.4%, according to the Office for National Statistics ONS annual survey, and that is in favour of men. So compared with last year, the mean gender pay gap for this council has narrowed slightly, remaining in favour of women, but it was minus 12.5% in 2024 and is now minus 10.8% in 2025. The council's median gender pay gap for the same period is minus 17%, so again in favour of women, and again that compares favourably with the national picture, with ONS reporting 12.8% nationally in favour of men. Again, the median gender pay gap has decreased slightly from the previous year, so it was minus 20% in 2024 to minus 17% in 2025. Where there can be some confusion is the council also has to report a bonus pay gap. That's not because we pay bonuses in the traditional understanding of the word, but both the honoraria payments that we make and our long service award under the Equality Act and the stipulations around it do need to be reported as bonuses. So the mean bonus gender pay gap in 2025 was 37% in favour of men, and the median bonus gender pay gap was 32% in favour of men. However, it's really important to emphasise that this reflects a very small population of our workforce, so only 2.15% of the workforce received an honoraria and or a long service payment, so 5 women and 9 men at the council receiving that payment. So due to the small numbers involved, the results are easily skewed, and again, this is something we've talked about here previously. By comparison, for example, the mean bonus gender pay gap was minus 5% in favour of women last year and 24.3% in favour of men the year before, so it can change quite dramatically from year to year. The only other thing I wanted to draw the committee's attention to is that last year when we brought this report forward, there was a request to look at whether we could report the gender pay gap by service area. We have looked at that, and that is problematic from a data and confidentiality perspective, especially in terms of some of the gender balances in some of our services. However, we have sought to provide the committee with some additional detail. So section 4.7 of the report is an addition this time round, and we have included the quartile, so it splits the workforce into 4. We've included within each quartile what percentage of staff in that quartile are men and women, and what the mean and median gender pay gaps are within those quartiles. So it provides the next level of detail down from the overall council picture, just to provide you with some further information. But as always, would welcome any questions from the committee on the report.
Councillor Golding.
I'm really sorry. I'm slightly... So, 4.5 jumped out at me, but now you've just made me look at the table, and I feel like the stats are the opposite way round on the table, so now I'm even more confused. So, men making up only 20% of employees on the lower quartile, but the pay gap being 9% worries me slightly, but actually your table says it's 82% men and 18% women, which in my head would help account for the...
Yes, apologies, I think that is a typo.
Okay, that therefore makes the difference make a little bit more sense. Thank you.
And mine, I should have spotted that one as well. Right, are there any other questions to officers? No, anybody in? Great. In that case, the recommendation to committee is to note the report on the council's gender pay gap. Is everybody happy with that report? Thank you. Now. On to item number 8, the updated human resources policies. The HR Committee are requested to review and approve the updates to 2 policies, disciplinary policy and procedure and the sickness absence policy and procedure. The HR Committee is to undertake an annual review of the delegation to officers to agree all other employment policies not explicitly listed on page 3.1. On page 3.15 in section 2.65 paragraph 3 of the Constitution, determining whether the committee wishes to amend the delegation for any certain policies. The contact officer again, Sarah Cragg and Louise Stoner, to introduce the report. Over to you, Louise.
Thank you, Chair. So constitutionally, the committee are responsible for a set of policies that have a significant impact on staff and or cost to the council. Our HR policies are reviewed on an ongoing basis, and policies may be reviewed at more regular intervals due to new ways of work, procedural or process changes. So 2 policies are scheduled for review tonight, and this is the disciplinary policy and procedure and the sickness absence policy and procedure. The sickness absence policy was scheduled for review in September 25. However, it has been comprehensively rewritten and agreed for review at tonight's committee. The proposed revisions to these policies have been discussed with local representatives of the council's recognised trade union, Unison. So starting with the disciplinary policy, the purpose of this policy is to set and maintain standards of conduct within the council, ensuring that all employees are treated fairly and consistently. It's also designed to help and encourage employees to achieve and maintain satisfactory standards of conduct. So section 3.2 of the report outlines the revisions that have been made to this policy, and these include aspects such as updating of job titles and providing further clarity on items or to bring in line with best practice. The second policy for consideration is the sickness absence policy and procedure, and as advised, this policy has had a full rewrite replacing the previous version of the policy. Focus groups were held with managers and research was undertaken with other public sector organisations, and the redrafted policy was shared with senior managers and Unison, and their comments were reviewed and integrated into the new policy. Section 4 of the report highlights the aims of the policy and the main significant changes that have been made to this policy. As discussed, Unison have reviewed both policies and are supportive of the new sickness absence policy and the amendments that are being made to the disciplinary policy and procedure. In addition to this, HR Committee are required to undertake an annual review of the delegations to officers, and the annual review of policies is in Appendix 3, and this is on page 85, which lists all the current employment policies. And I welcome any questions arising from this report.
Are there any questions for officers? Right. Okay. So the recommendation to the committee then is to review and approve the following updated policies: the disciplinary policy and procedure and the sickness absence policy and procedure. But the views of the committee are also sought on whether the HR committee wish to recommend any amendments to the delegation to officers for certain employment policies not listed in section 2.1 of this report, as outlined in section 2.2 of this report, with a list of all employment policies provided at Appendix 3. I think if the committee do want to include any additional policies, advise that they recommend to the monitoring officer with the policy name. Thank you. So is everybody agreed? Agreed? No recommendations? No. Thank you. Right, number 9 we've already covered. So On to item number 10, the review of the work programme. The committee is asked to note and review its work programme. Sarah Cragg to introduce said programme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the items scheduled for October's committee, as you will be aware, they're sort of fairly standard in terms of the reports that come forward as outlined in the Constitution. So we will have our annual review of health and safety. We will have the workforce update, which is the same data report that came before you this evening, although noted that we will include those training figures as requested by the committee. We are also intending to have 3 policies coming forward for review, as well as our staff code of conduct. So those policies next in the schedule are capability, redundancy handling and whistleblowing. And finally, there will be our annual termination costs report, which is the report on the costs of redundancies, early retirements and settlement agreements during the previous financial year.
Right, so we're asked to note the work programme, and if anyone has anything, please to fill out a work programme suggestion form. No? Anybody? No? Okay, on to item number 11. I don't think there's anything on 11, is there? Nothing on number 12? No. I think in that case, let's call the meeting to a close.